cannon fodder. That will be the message from David Cameron to young British Muslims this morning as he announced a fresh crackdown to stop them from being radicalised.
Some of those who have been held captive by the terrorists have spoken out about the horrors that they've suffered and warned others not to believe the promises they're made.
They began to choose the girls. The girls were shouting, screaming and being sick. I said, "How could you do this? I'm young enough to be your granddaughter." He burnt me with cigarettes on my shoulders, stomach and legs. I was in so much pain, I tried to escape. He opened the door and 6 guards came into the room. He said, "I told you on the first day what your fate would be if you tried to escape. This is your fate now. Imagine if this happened to your women, your daughters. What would you do?"
We're joined now by Baroness Nicholson, who chairs the AMAR charity, which is Arabic for Rebuilding Lives, and helps young women like the one we've just heard from. Good morning to you, Emma. Thank you for coming in. Extraordinarily disturbing details from that young lady about what she experienced at the hand of ISIS.
The full story she couldn't say. You just couldn't say it on a public forum. It's so horrific what happened to her. I cannot believe she's still alive. And a number of the girls, there are 5,000 captive being treated like this, right down to the ages of 2 or 3. A number of the girls are already dead.
Oh, goodness. So that story she has then been telling to youngsters in school, is that right, to try and help them have a clear idea of what they could be in for?
I and my colleagues had the opportunity to invite 3 young victims of the so-called Islamic State to the United Kingdom 10 days ago. They came to me when I was in Baghdad and they told me their stories. One of them had never told anyone that before. It was so horrific. I said, "What do you want? What can I do for you?" And they said, "We want our stories to be heard." And the eldest one said, "I want to talk to somebody who understands." So I knew that I had to bring them to Britain. It wasn't a case of getting them filmed or writing something down on the spot, because face-to-face, as it were, or on video with their faces blurred, is so much more, well, so real, so horrible.
And what impact did it have on the youngsters that they were talking to?
The young people they talked to in one of the Birmingham so-called Trojan Horse schools, which is a wonderful school now, actually, called Saltley Academy, they seemed to be so shocked their faces barely moved. And I thought to myself, as I was watching from the back, they don't understand, or maybe they're not comprehending, maybe they're too naive. Not at all, it sunk in. And one by one they stood up and started to apologise for what had happened. The boys stood up and said, "We can't say how sorry we are, how tragic this is." And the girls stood up and said, "We've got to do something about this." I've invited Saltley Academy to come down to the House of Lords so we can discuss it more when their new term starts in September. But before then, some of the young are already active.
Emma, it sounds like that experience for the young people at that academy particularly was a very tangible one, and one that will undoubtedly make a difference, particularly if any of them were feeling vulnerable or perhaps were being lured towards ISIS and what they perceive to be the glamour of ISIS. What do you make of David Cameron and his position in the speech he's going to make today, and his plans for trying to tackle the root causes of radicalism?
It's essential that we tackle the root causes, and the root causes, I think, is that the young people don't know anything about it. In the AMAR Foundation, what I would like now is for us to get round those videos to every single school in Britain and the universities, which are hugely vulnerable. Not just those who are supposedly studying Islam or Muslim, it's every single school. Every youngster is vulnerable at the moment because they think it's glamorous. Of course, it isn't glamorous. It's the most sordid, horrible rampage ever. And if you're a young man or a boy, as David says, they may strap you up and force you to be a suicide bomber. But even worse than that, in a sense, because at last you're dead, even worse than that is that they radicalise them to such an extent. Don't go around thinking it's clever ISIL people themselves doing all the beheadings and the tortures and everything. It isn't. It's the youngsters who come out. They are the ones who are doing it. They're worse than cannon fodder. They're the torturers. They're the killers. They're absolutely, completely off the wall, and more than that. So, and the real ISIS people are sitting in the middle, high on cocaine, hugely violent pornographic videos, which is what makes them do this to the girls, and they're the ones who are just laughing.
Okay, well, Baroness Nicholson, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's really interesting to get your perspective on it.
Thank you. Now, Charlotte Scott.